This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the Lenovo Legion Y545. It's a lot like the 540, but it's a little bit more money. But what do you get for that? More classy looks. This has an aluminum lid on it. And still ABS plastic on the bottom, but it's got a soft touch black finish inside. In fact, a lot like a ThinkPad, which Lenovo makes, and a keyboard, which, this is a good thing, is a lot like a ThinkPad's. And the good news is, for a gaming laptop, this entry to mid-level, depending on how you configure it, it starts at $849. Such a deal. Intel 9th Gen 6-core i7 CPU inside of ours, and you can have your choice of NVIDIA GTX 1650 or GTX 1660 Ti or an RTX 2060. We're going to look at it now. First, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors for this video, Trend Micro and their home network security device. This is obviously a very small, fairly affordable home security device. And what does that mean? It has a firewall inside. It can block malicious websites and files too. And something I think is pretty neat is the family management feature on this. So you can actually define your family members, Sally, the daughter, for example, and say which device she uses. And you can have parental blocks for adult websites, for time of day, so they're not watching YouTube when they should be in bed at 10 p.m., for example. It also protects your IoT devices. That means your Internet of Things devices, your smart fridge, your smart washing machine, your home assistants, your robotic vacuum cleaners. Those are often the least well secured from the factory and the most vulnerable. And also can look at your devices on your network and tell you of any security vulnerabilities, including ones on your routers. So really useful stuff. And we've got a coupon code that you can use to save some money right now too. And now back to our review. So the laptop has a 15.6-inch display. Because it's not a high-end gaming laptop, Lenovo does make those too, your maximum resolution here is full HD. You have your choice of two different displays, a 60 Hz and for about $100 more, 144 Hz refresh rate. And that 144 Hz makes sense mostly if you go with an RTX 2060. Yeah, well, it depends on the game though. If you're playing something like Apex, where even on high you can get pretty good frame rates on this, well, if you're playing Apex, then the 1660 Ti is still a solid choice, which is what we have. So the base model is going to get you a Core i5-9300H, 8 gigs of RAM. You know, if you'd like dual channel, you'd like 16, definitely worth a little extra spend for that, or upgrade it yourself. A 256 gig NVMe boot SSD and a 1 terabyte fast 7200 RPM hard drive. Ours happens to be a Seagate Barracuda inside. So that's not bad. And the 60 Hz full HD display. If you spend around $1,135 or so, you can have our model, which is the Core i7-9750H and that GTX 1660 Ti instead of the base model's GTX 1650. And you get 16 gigs of RAM, the same 256 gig SSD and the same fast 1 terabyte hard drive, and still that 60 Hz display. If you want to go up, like I said, about $70 to $100 to go up to that faster display. Now, if you do want to go up to an RTX 2060, and if you can afford to, hey, why not? I would. That's about $100. Right now, it's on special for only $70 more if you're moving up from the 1660 Ti, that is. So you're looking at something very affordable, and that's what this is. This is a lot of bang for the buck, and unlike a lot of entry-level gaming laptops that start under $1,000, this one doesn't look so cheeseball, plasticky, or gamery either. Yeah, it has pretty aggressive grills, and it does need to do a lot of ventilation. Other than the white Y logo on the lid that does light up, I haven't found a way to stop it from happening. It's pretty sedate looking and it's pretty classy. It doesn't look cheesy, which means it's a good crossover laptop for those of you who are also really maybe just doing some gaming, but you need a more powerful laptop or something else you're doing. Maybe you're doing some CAD, some Blender work, that kind of thing. You know who you are, those of you who shop, cross-shop to gaming laptops because you need some more horsepower for whatever you're doing. Video editing like we do, you get the idea. Now, the cooling on this is pretty good, and one of the benefits of having a slim and relatively light, 5.2 pounds, which is 2.3 kilograms, around an inch thick, if it's not painfully thin like the premium laptops is, you have room for a little bit more cooling. So we have two fans in here and two heat pipes, and one of them is shared, the other is not. Good to not share them all. And we also have a lot of heatsink action here covering things like VRMs, which is pretty advanced for a budget laptop, and that does help with cooling. In some games, yes, these are hot running CPUs. We did hit 95 degrees centigrade on the core temperatures, but it wasn't actually throttling. On some other games, like in Apex, we were pushing very high frame rates, running that on high full HD resolution. And then it did do some thermal throttling, but it was running madly high FIPS on that game. So hey, it's fair given what gaming laptops are these days. The cooling solution on this is actually pretty good. And the fans, you'll hear them, but they're not loud, they're not annoying. They won't fill a room with noise either. They're 70 blade fans. They're pretty high quality. Again, punching above its weight, certainly for a gaming laptop. Performance on this is really exactly where you would expect it, to a little bit better actually. Lenovo's doing a good job of getting performance, particularly out of the CPU on this. If we presented you with a graph comparing it to other laptops with the same configuration, though, you wouldn't see a whole lot of difference between them. Most manufacturers actually do a pretty good job of getting good performance out of their laptops. That's what it tells us. But I would say that here we're looking at very good PC Mark 10 numbers, for example, which tells me that the thermal solution is helping without seeing thermal throttling. And then things like 3D Mark gaming benchmarks, the CPU typically reaches into the low 90s only, not above, not thermal throttling. You go Lenovo. That's nice. Again, we have the 1660 Ti in ours, and that's full 1660 Ti, and it has 6 gigs of VRAM. If you go with the RTX 2060, you'll get a little bit more heat inside the chassis. It might lead to a little bit more thermal throttling, but it wouldn't, not so much that would scare me away from buying it. Like I said, the keyboard on this is lovely for those of you who actually have to type a lot. Lenovo says it's an anti-ghosting keyboard. It's a lot like the Lenovo ThinkPad P53 keyboard, though, which is a good thing. 1.7 millimeters of key travel, those smile-shaped keys. Nice. It's not super springy, pushing back up at you, but it's got a nice, crisp feel to it, and it has that number pad like the P53 does. Overall, good stuff. You have a Microsoft Precision trackpad. It's Mylar, not glass. That's fine for the price. Could you tell the difference if I didn't tell you when it comes to glass versus Mylar? I don't think so. We have Harman branded stereo speakers that are front firing along the bottom edge, kind of down and forward firing in Dolby Atmos software. They're pretty good speakers. They get reasonably loud. They have a decent amount of bass, which you would like to see for a gaming laptop, but in budget territory, you don't always get that. So again, another plus. We have a USB-A 3.1 port on each side, left-handed or right-handed. You can find a place to plug in your mouse, and a headphone jack on the side. All the other ports are on the back. That's good if you like it tidy. It's not so great if you're always reaching around to the back. You decide. It's up to you how much you like that or don't like that. We have Lenovo's proprietary rectangular charging connector at the back with a 230-watt charger on ours. The lower-powered model would have 170 watt. And also on the back we have HDMI 2.0, the mini DisplayPort 1.4, and USB-C, not Thunderbolt 3 though. So yes, you could drive 3 displays if you wanted to out. And there's RJ45 gigabit Ethernet as well. For Wi-Fi, it's the usual Intel 9560 AC with Bluetooth inside. Now, when it comes to battery life, this hinges back to performance. This is pretty interesting. This is a feature you don't see much on gaming laptops. We wish that you did, and certainly not on budget ones. You can actually switch between dedicated graphics all the time, and for whatever reason, that usually does result in better frame rates in games, even if the dedicated GPU is the only thing that seems to be engaged, 5 frames per second or so better. Or you can switch to hybrid or switchable NVIDIA Optimus graphics. And your battery life obviously will be different. If you're plugged in gaming, I would turn off hybrid graphics and just run dedicated all the time. If you're unplugged and you're running on dedicated graphics only, expect about 3.5 hours. This is a 57 watt-hour battery, which is not that big, and this is the shortcoming of a lot of, relatively speaking, thin and light 15-inch gaming laptops, and particularly the budget ones. Now, if you do have it on switchable graphics when you're doing productivity and everyday work, streaming your video, then you can manage about 4.5 to 5 hours. So this is not a class leader in battery life. So take off the bottom cover, which obviously has ample ventilation. Good to see that. You remove Phillips head screws. Yay, no Torx screws or anything like that. So you work your way around the front with a guitar pick, and then there's these little tabs here, so pry off the front and you can take it off. Note that there are 2 different lengths of screws along the back, and the Y area here basically are the longer screws. Just pay attention. So you put them back the way you found them. And here we have our internals, our 2 fans, that's 70 blade fans here, our heatsink area here, and extended heatsink, like I mentioned, for cooling components. That's a good thing to see. And if we lift up this stuff here, this is where your RAM is, underneath the little shield cover right here. A little annoying to pick it up, but you have 2 RAM slots here. Takes DDR4 2666 megahertz RAM, so upgradable as you see fit. This is our SSD. It's an NVMe SSD. Now, I don't think they're using this anymore. This is a half height, but there's obviously enough length here to fit a normal 2280 full length SSD. Now the base models are 256 gigs. When we got this, it was 128 gigs. So yeah, you probably won't see one like that. And here is our hard drive bay with the Seagate Barracuda Pro, fast hard drive as they go, but you could put a 2.5-inch SATA drive in there. Not too expensive to do that these days to speed up your big storage for where your games are, your media, or anything else. And lastly, over here, here's our Intel 9560 AC Wi-Fi card socketed. You could upgrade it if you want, but it's a good card. You probably don't want to do that. And lastly, the speakers are firing from right here. Here's our 2 speaker drivers on the front edge. So that's the Lenovo Legion Y545. I like it a lot for the price. It's really nice to see a gaming laptop that starts under $1,000, and you can get decent configuration, more of a power user configuration, even for $1,150 or less, that doesn't look ugly. It doesn't look cheap. It has good sound. The cooling is pretty good on this. The graphics on this are pretty good. That GTX 1660 Ti really punches above its weight. You don't get ray tracing, but other than that, you get a lot of good performance in games, sufficient to play high at frame rates that will exceed the 60 Hz display. Nice. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and be sure to hit that notification bell.